My name is Claudia, and I'm 58 years old. They say fame changes people, but I never imagined it would destroy a 30-year friendship. She called me her sister, my partner, my best friend until the night she stood under blinding lights and stole everything we built together, claiming my company as hers. The world cheered her name while I disappeared into silence. But what she didn't know was that I was already planning something she'd never see coming. Years later, when her empire collapsed and she walked through my doors begging for a job, I've lived long enough to know that not everyone who walks beside you intends to stay forever, but Dina was supposed to be different. She wasn't just my best friend, she was my chosen sister. We met in middle school, bonded over our shared love for art and dreams that were far too big for our small Ohio town. When we were young, we'd spend hours sketching designs and talking about the women we wanted to become. Dina was always the performer, confident, radiant, impossible to ignore. I was quieter, the planner, the one who made sure our wild ideas could actually work. Together, we promised that one day we'd build something that made women our age feel beautiful again. In our late 20s, we packed our lives into 2 suitcases and drove to Los Angeles. We were terrified but determined. The city felt enormous, glittering with promise and danger. We worked out of a tiny studio apartment that smelled like coffee and cheap perfume, sketching packaging designs on napkins and testing homemade serums in our kitchen sink. Those early years were tough, but they were also magic. We named our dream Glow Years. I handled the finances, the research, the formulas, while Dina took charge of the branding and social media. It worked perfectly at first. She was the face, I was the foundation. She had a gift for connecting with people, and I was proud of her. When the orders started rolling in, it felt like we were finally being seen, both of us, side by side. But then something shifted. The more attention Dina got, the less she saw me. I noticed it in little things. At first she'd take interviews alone, forget to mention my name in articles, or introduce me to people as her assistant. I laughed it off because that's what friends do, we give grace. I told myself fame just made people nervous, that she was still my Dina underneath it all. But the more our company grew, the more she changed. Her tone hardened. She started showing up late to meetings, dismissing my ideas, treating my cautiousness like weakness. She wanted everything bigger, flashier, faster. She'd tell me, "Claudia, people don't care about details, they care about drama." And maybe she was right. The followers loved her energy, the way she spoke like she was doing the world a favor. I told myself I didn't need the spotlight. I was content behind the curtain, making sure the show went on. But it started to hurt watching her bask in praise for ideas that were half mine, watching her pretend we weren't equals. The final blow came on a night that was supposed to celebrate both of us. We had spent months preparing for a launch event at a luxury hotel downtown. The ballroom shimmered with gold lights, filled with influencers and beauty editors. I stood at the edge of the crowd, heart racing, proud and nervous. When Dina walked on stage, wearing a silver dress that caught every flash, I smiled until I heard her words. She thanked the sponsors, her fans, her incredible team. Then she said it. "I built Glow Years from scratch," she told them, her voice steady, confident, rehearsed. My name never left her lips. I froze. The applause was deafening. It was as if my entire existence had been erased in one sentence. My hands trembled as I stared at her under those bright lights, realizing the friend I'd loved for 30 years had just buried me alive in silence. After the event, I confronted her backstage. The air smelled like champagne and betrayal. She didn't look guilty, just irritated. Like I'd interrupted her victory lap. "You're good behind the scenes, Claudia," she said casually, fixing her lipstick in the mirror. "Let me handle the spotlight." It wasn't anger that hit me first, it was grief. I realized she had made peace with betraying me long before that night. I left without another word, my heels echoing down the hallway like a goodbye. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, the city lights blurring through my tears. The woman I once called my sister had stolen not just my company, but my identity. And as I stared at the glowing skyline, a quiet determination took root inside me. If Dina wanted the spotlight so badly, then I'd build something so brilliant, so unshakable, that she'd never stand in its glow again. That was the night my best friend became my enemy, and the night I decided to build an empire big enough to block and her light entirely. The betrayal wasn't complete yet. Dina wanted everything, including the company I helped create. After that humiliating night, I wasn't ready to surrender. I still believed in fairness, in proof, in the truth winning out. I had documents showing I was co-founder contracts we both signed, emails discussing formulas I developed, even product samples with my initials on them. I gathered it all into a folder, thinking that if I showed people the facts, they'd see who I really was. But I underestimated just how powerful Dina had become and how well she'd planned my erasure. When I reached out to our legal advisor, I discovered she had replaced him. Every door I tried to open had already been closed. Dina had hired a new legal team and a PR agency weeks before the event. While I was busy fixing formulas and balancing budgets, she had been preparing her narrative, one where she was the creative genius and I was the bitter assistant. It wasn't just betrayal anymore, it was strategy. Then came the press release. Dina's team released a statement calling me a disgruntled ex-employee who was attempting to claim ownership of a brand that wasn't hers. Within hours, my phone was blowing up. Friends, journalists, even customers who had once praised my work sent me messages filled with confusion, pity, and, worst of all, doubt. Online forums dissected my character, calling me jealous, manipulative, greedy. My name became a trending topic, and not in the way anyone would want. The hate came fast and vicious. People who had never met me told me to get over it and let Dina shine. Some said I was trying to ruin a successful woman out of envy. Every notification was a reminder of how easily the world can rewrite you. I stopped opening social media. Even walking outside felt unbearable. I'd see billboards of Dina smiling with products I had designed, her name printed in gold cursive where mine should have been. My finances collapsed faster than my reputation. The company accounts were inaccessible, my salary terminated overnight. I was locked out of our office and told by security that I was no longer authorized to enter. Within weeks, I had to leave the apartment Dina and I once shared because it was registered under the company's name. I packed my belongings into 2 suitcases, the same ones we'd brought to Los Angeles decades ago, and moved into a small rented room above a laundromat. Depression followed like a shadow I couldn't shake. Some mornings I couldn't even get out of bed. I'd lie there, staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation with Dina, wondering when she started planning my downfall. My family called from Ohio, begging me to come home, to leave all this behind. But pride and pain can be powerful motivators. I couldn't let her final memory of me be one of surrender. I decided that if she had taken everything from me, I would build something from nothing again. To survive, I took a job at a small cosmetics lab on the outskirts of the city. It paid barely enough for rent, but it gave me something priceless: purpose. The lab wasn't glamorous. The floors were worn, the equipment outdated, but the people there were real. Chemists who cared about ingredients, not fame. Scientists who wanted to make good products, not flashy promises. I felt invisible, and oddly, that was a relief. For the first time in months, I could work quietly without defending myself. Every evening, after everyone left, I stayed behind to experiment. I'd mix oils, test combinations, write notes in my worn notebook. It reminded me why I fell in love with this industry in the first place, helping women feel confident in their own skin, not chasing trends or followers. One night, while cleaning the counter, I accidentally spilled 2 solutions together, one from a hydrating base, the other from a vitamin complex I'd been testing. The mixture reacted instantly, forming a soft, luminous cream unlike anything I'd seen. It shimmered faintly, light but rich, like the perfect balance between science and magic. I tested it on my wrist, and the next morning, my skin looked smoother, softer, renewed. I laughed out loud for the first time in months. It was small, but it felt like hope. For the first time since losing everything, I wasn't thinking about revenge or pain, I was thinking about possibility. Maybe I hadn't lost my purpose. Maybe I'd just been forced to find it again. That night, As I sat alone under the sterile light of the lab, I stared at that tiny jar of cream and felt something stirring deep inside me. I didn't know it yet, but that single accidental creation would soon become my redemption and the spark of the empire that would change everything. Sometimes rock bottom is the perfect foundation for a comeback. For me, it started with a small glass jar and an accident that turned into a miracle. The formula I stumbled upon that night became the base for a serum I named Second Skin. The name came naturally. It wasn't just about beauty. It was about renewal, about shedding the damage others had done and finding strength underneath. I began testing the serum on myself, unsure if it was truly different or if I just needed something to believe in. Within a few weeks, my skin began to look healthier, smoother. The fine lines that once made me look perpetually tired softened, and with them, so did the sadness in my reflection. For months, I had looked in the mirror and seen loss. Now, for the first time, I saw possibility. It was more than skincare, it was a symbol of reclaiming what I'd lost. My confidence, my identity, my fight. I decided to take a small risk. I reached out to a few women I'd met through online forums, women in their 50s and 60s, who often felt overlooked by the beauty industry. I told them I was developing a serum and asked if they'd be willing to try free samples. I packaged each jar myself, labeling them by hand late into the night. It felt intimate, personal, like sending a part of my story out into the world. The feedback started coming in a few weeks later, and it nearly brought me to tears. One woman wrote that she hadn't worn makeup in years because nothing made her feel beautiful until Second Skin. Another said her husband had complimented her for the first time in months. Their words reminded me why I'd started this journey in the first place. It wasn't about fame or revenge. It was about giving women back their glow, their sense of self. That realization shifted something deep inside me. I wasn't rebuilding what Dina stole, I was building something new, something honest. With what little savings I had left, I decided to take the leap. The name symbolized timeless beauty, not the kind you chase with filters and lies, but the kind that grows from authenticity. I spent nights designing the website myself, shooting photos with borrowed lighting equipment, and writing every product description from the heart. My marketing plan was simple: real women, real results. No filters, no airbrushing, no empty promises. When I launched the online store, I expected silence. Instead, I got my first order within hours from one of the women who had tested my samples. Then another. And another. It wasn't a flood, but it was a steady, hopeful stream. I printed shipping labels in my living room and personally wrote thank you notes to every customer. Word of mouth began to spread, slowly at first, but with genuine excitement. People trusted Eternaglow because it wasn't pretending to be something it wasn't. As sales began to pick up, I knew I couldn't do everything alone. That's when I met Jenna. She was 25, bright-eyed and fresh out of college, eager to learn and unafraid of hard work. She reminded me of myself when Dina and I first started before the lies, before the greed. Jenna respected my story and believed in my mission. She took over the social media side, posting authentic videos and heartfelt customer stories. Her creativity brought warmth to the brand, and together, we built something that felt alive. For the first time in years, I felt like myself again. Every morning, I woke up excited, not defeated. The orders kept coming in, and soon, what started as a small project in my apartment turned into a real business. There were long nights and constant worries: money, packaging, shipping, but they were good worries, the kind that meant progress. Every milestone, no matter how small, felt like a victory I'd earned with my own 2 hands. Months passed, and Eternaglow began to make waves in the beauty community. Influencers started reaching out to feature our products, not because we paid them, but because they genuinely loved them. My brand was thriving on truth, something Dina's world had long abandoned. I should have felt at peace, finally detached from the past, but fate has a cruel sense of timing. One evening, as Jenna and I reviewed upcoming campaign plans, an email appeared in our inbox. It was from a major beauty magazine, requesting an interview about my brand's sudden rise. I smiled, ready to celebrate the recognition I'd worked so hard for until I saw the last line of the message. We'd also like to include a statement from Dina Rivers, who has recently announced a new product line under her company, Glow Years. My stomach tightened. After all this time, she was back. Dina, the woman who had erased me, was returning to the stage, and this time, not as a distant rival, but as my direct competition. I closed my laptop slowly, a cold calm settling over me. The woman who destroyed my life was about to step into my world again, and this time, I wasn't the one standing in her shadow. My old best friend turned rival was now threatened by my success, and she wasn't going to play fair. For months, Eternaglow had been climbing steadily, winning over women who were tired of empty promises and perfect faces. The more authentic I became, the more customers I gained, and the fewer Dina kept. I didn't need to announce my comeback. The numbers spoke for themselves, and that terrified her. It started subtly. Her social media posts began to reference copycats and cheap imitators, though she never said my name directly. Then she appeared in a live interview, smiling sweetly while calling Eternaglow a homebrewed skincare experiment run by someone who used to work for her. Her words stung, not because they were true, but because they reminded me of how easily she twisted a story to suit herself. I'd seen that performance before. Now, she was doing it again, just on a bigger stage. Within days, fake reviews appeared online. Anonymous accounts claimed my products caused rashes, burns, allergic reactions, none of which were real. Influencers who once praised our brand suddenly turned cold, their enthusiasm replaced by carefully worded concerns. I wasn't naive. I knew exactly who was behind it. Dina had money, reach, and a need to win at any cost. But even with all her power, she didn't understand something crucial: the difference between attention and trust. Then came the worst blow. One morning, I logged into our website and froze. It had been hacked. Orders disappeared, customer data was scrambled, and our payment systems were down. The entire business I'd built from scratch was paralyzed overnight. I couldn't prove it was her, but the timing was too perfect to be coincidence. She'd done this before: destroy from the shadows, then smile for the cameras. My first instinct was rage. I wanted to expose her, drag the truth into the light, but deep down, I knew fighting her publicly would only feed her. She thrived on chaos. I didn't. So instead of going to war, I turned inward. I doubled down on what made Eternaglow special: authenticity. While Dina threw money at influencers and billboards, I focused on real women. I wanted to remind them that beauty wasn't defined by age, and that truth didn't need filters. When I told Jenna my plan, she nodded, her eyes bright with ideas. She was the one who said, "Why don't we show them what real beauty looks like?" No models, no editing, just women using our products on camera. That's how our YouTube channel was born. We filmed in my apartment with simple lighting and honest stories. We featured women in their 50s, 60s, even 70s, talking about their skin, their lives, their confidence. There were no scripts, no sponsors, just truth. The first video barely got a few thousand views. The second crossed 100,000. By the third, something incredible happened: it went viral. Women from around the world started sharing their own stories under our new slogan, "Beauty doesn't expire." It became more than marketing, it was a movement. Our inbox overflowed with messages from women thanking us for making them feel seen. I hadn't just rebuilt a company, I'd sparked a conversation. Meanwhile, Dina's empire began to crack. Her numbers dipped, her lavish events grew emptier. People were tired of her perfection. They wanted something real. Reporters started comparing her company to mine, noting the stark difference between her polished image and our sincerity. I didn't celebrate her downfall, but I couldn't ignore the irony. The same woman who once erased me was now being overshadowed by what she'd inspired me to create. I was invited to speak at a women's business conference in New York. Standing on that stage, sharing my story, I felt a strange peace. For the first time, I wasn't defined by what I'd lost, but by what I'd built. I didn't mention Dina by name. I didn't need to. The audience already knew who I was and more. Importantly, who I wasn't. Then, one night, long after I thought I'd buried our past, a familiar name appeared on my phone screen. It was a message from Dina. The text was short, almost casual, but it stopped my heart cold. "Let's talk," it read. "It's not too late to team up." I stared at the words, stunned. Team up? After everything she'd done? After the lies, the humiliation, the years of silence? I couldn't tell if it was desperation or manipulation, but either way, she had misjudged me. I wasn't the same woman she betrayed. Still, I agreed to meet her, not to reconcile, but to look her in the eyes when I said no. After years of silence, I finally came face to face with the woman who stole everything from me. It was Dina's idea to meet, naturally, and she insisted on choosing the place, a high-end restaurant in Beverly Hills where chandeliers glimmered like frozen tears. The moment I walked in, I understood her choice. She wanted to remind me who she thought she still was, the woman of luxury, success, and control, but that illusion was already cracking. She arrived 20 minutes late, wearing an immaculate white suit that probably cost more than I'd made in my first year of rebuilding. She smiled like nothing had happened, like the past 3 years hadn't been a war she'd started. "Claudia," she said, air kissing the space beside my cheek. "You look, well." Her tone was smooth, but her eyes darted with calculation. I could tell she'd rehearsed this moment, expecting me to either crumble or beg. As we sat, she launched straight into her pitch, her voice dripping with forced warmth. "I've been following Eternaglow," she began, "and I have to say I'm impressed. You really turned your little company into something substantial." Little company. The word stung, but I didn't show it. I simply nodded, waiting for her to reveal what she really wanted. It didn't take long. "I think we should consider a merger," she said, leaning forward. "Our audiences overlap, and together, we could dominate the midlife beauty market. There's room for both of us if we combine forces." For a moment, I almost laughed. Dina never offered partnerships. She offered thrones with her sitting firmly on top. But I played along, curious to see how desperate she really was. "Why now?" I asked. "Glow Years has always been your empire. Why share it?" Her smile faltered just for a second. "Business is unpredictable," she said quickly. "Some investors have shifted priorities. A collaboration could bring stability to both brands." I heard what she didn't say. Her company was bleeding money. Her investors were pulling out. Her flawless image was crumbling under the weight of debt and bad publicity. I took a sip of my water, savoring the silence before answering. "No, Dina. I'm not interested." The mask slipped instantly. Her voice sharpened, her words slicing through the air. "You think you're better than me now? Don't forget where you came from. You're nothing without me." I met her glare with calm, steady eyes. "You're right," I said softly. "I'm nothing like you anymore, and the only thing I ever stole was my life back." For a moment, the restaurant noise faded. Dina's expression hardened, but behind her fury I saw fear, real, raw fear. The kind that comes when someone realizes their power is gone and they can't get it back. She fumbled with her purse, trying to maintain her composure. "You'll regret this," she whispered. But I'd already lived through my worst regrets. I stood, left enough cash for my meal, and walked out without looking back. As I stepped into the sunlight, I felt lighter. That meeting didn't just close a chapter, it ended a book I should have stopped reading long ago. From that day on, I threw myself into Eternaglow like never before. I hired experienced chemists, marketing experts, and a small but passionate team of women who believed in the brand's mission. We expanded our product line: serums, moisturizers, gentle cleansers, all rooted in the same philosophy that started it all: honesty over hype. Our first flagship store opened in Santa Monica, and the turnout was beyond anything I'd imagined. Women traveled from across the country to attend, their stories mirroring mine: betrayal, resilience, rediscovery. I stood on stage that evening, watching them celebrate each other, and realized something profound. Dina had built a brand to glorify herself. I'd built one to lift others. And that difference was everything. The event made headlines. Articles praised Eterna Glow for redefining beauty standards for women over 50. Our revenue doubled within months. For the first time, I could finally breathe without the weight of her shadow pressing down. But success always attracts eyes, especially familiar ones. A few weeks later, during a staff meeting, Jenna showed me a clip from a fashion blog. It was footage from our launch night crowds, flashing lights, laughter, and then, in the background, a familiar face in a dark wig and oversized sunglasses. Dina. She had come to my event, pretending to be someone else, trying to study the competition. I didn't know whether to laugh or pity her. But what she didn't know was that several attendees had recorded the night, and one had already posted the clip online. The internet was ruthless when it came to hypocrisy, and the comments were brutal. The woman who once humiliated me on stage had just been caught sneaking into mine, and the world was about to see her fall this time, without me lifting a finger. I didn't need revenge. Karma handled it for me in front of millions. The morning after our launch event, my phone buzzed endlessly with notifications. At first, I thought it was about our success, the press coverage, the positive reviews, but when I opened one message, I froze. It was a video clip from the event, the one where Dina had attended in disguise. The angle wasn't perfect, but there was no mistaking her. The camera caught her pulling down her sunglasses for just a moment, and that was all it took. The internet never misses a face, especially one that once graced magazine covers. By sunrise, the clip was everywhere. Fallen beauty queen spotted at rival's event, the headlines read. People recognized her instantly, and the comments were merciless. Old fans accused her of being desperate, obsessed, unable to let go. Some even called it poetic justice, how the woman who once erased her partner from history had now reduced herself to sneaking into her ex-partner's success story. The public's sympathy flipped overnight, and Dina's polished image shattered beyond repair. At first, reporters tried to drag me into the chaos. My inbox flooded with requests for interviews, podcast appearances, and even talk show invitations. They wanted me to talk about Dina, to feed the drama. But I refused every single one. I knew that silence was the most powerful statement I could make. I didn't need to humiliate her. She was doing that all on her own. Instead, I posted one short message on Eterna Glow's page. We're grateful for every woman who believes in second chances. It wasn't about her, it was about us, and that distinction made all the difference. The audience loved it. My restraint became part of the brand's identity. Where Dina had been loud and defensive, I stayed calm and grounded. My silence spoke louder than any insult she had ever thrown at me. It wasn't just grace, it was growth. For the first time, I wasn't reacting to her. I was simply living beyond her reach. The wave of positive attention that followed was staggering. Eterna Glow's sales tripled in a matter of weeks. Our videos gained millions of views, and we were featured in business magazines as a case study in authenticity. Within months, the brand crossed into multi-million-dollar territory. Investors who had once overlooked me now lined up to work with us. But I was cautious. I didn't want money to change the soul of what we'd built. I began expanding carefully new formulas, better packaging, and hiring more women from diverse backgrounds. It became more than skincare. It was a movement celebrating resilience and aging with confidence. During one meeting, I looked around the office at all the women who had believed in me, and it hit me how far I'd come from those lonely nights in the lab. The fear that used to haunt me had turned into fuel. I no longer measured my success by outshining Dina but by uplifting others. When it came time to open our new headquarters, I wanted the location to mean something. I searched for months, visiting dozens of spaces across Los Angeles, until one listing stopped me cold. It was the same building where Glow Years had once been born, the small, sunlit office where Dina and I dreamed together before she tore it all apart. The moment I stepped inside, I felt everything, the laughter, the long nights, the betrayal, and then, peace. I bought it without hesitation. But this time, I didn't fill it with mirrors and vanity lights. I filled it with real people, real purpose. On the wall behind my new desk, I hung a single framed quote, "Build what they tried to bury." It wasn't bitterness, it was closure. Meanwhile, Dina's empire was collapsing in slow motion. Her sponsors dropped her one by one, claiming brand misalignment. Her company filed for bankruptcy within 6 months. She went silent online, deleting posts, retreating from public life. Every headline about her downfall felt surreal. Years ago, I would have imagined celebrating that moment, maybe even feeling vindicated. But instead, all I felt was calm. Revenge had always seemed like a satisfying fantasy, but standing in the ruins of what she created, I realized I didn't need her failure to validate my success. My victory wasn't about her losing, it was about me winning back myself. Life finally felt quiet again. My business was thriving, my days were full, and for once, the past didn't weigh on me. But peace is fragile, and it rarely lasts forever. One rainy afternoon, I was in my office reviewing new product designs when my assistant buzzed me through the intercom. "Claudia," she said hesitantly, "there's someone here asking to see you." I almost said no, I didn't take walk-ins anymore, but something in her voice made me pause. "Who is it?" I asked. There was a brief silence, then she said softly, "She says her name is Dina." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The woman who had once taken everything from me, the woman I thought I'd finally outgrown, was standing just beyond my office doors. And something in the trembling tone of my assistant's voice told me she wasn't the same Dina I used to know. The woman who once erased me from history was now standing in my lobby, asking for a job. When my assistant led her into the waiting area, I almost didn't recognize her. Dina looked like a ghost of the woman she used to be, thinner, pale, her makeup barely concealing the dark circles beneath her eyes. The confidence that once filled every room she entered was gone, replaced by something fragile, something human. She stood clutching her handbag like it was the last thing she owned. For a moment, I couldn't speak. I just stared, frozen between disbelief and pity. Memories of our past flashed through my mind, the laughter, the betrayal, the years I spent trying to rebuild what she destroyed. And now here she was, stripped of the armor that fame had given her. She looked up at me, her voice trembling as she spoke. "Claudia, I know I have no right to ask, but I need your help, please." My staff, gathered near the reception desk, fell silent. They all knew who she was. Some looked angry, others curious, but everyone waited for my reaction. I could feel the weight of their eyes on me, expecting fireworks or maybe revenge. Instead, I nodded quietly and said, "Come with me." We walked to my office in silence. The sound of her heels clicking against the marble floor echoed through the hallway like the rhythm of old memories refusing to die. When I closed the door behind us, she seemed to collapse into the chair opposite me, exhaling shakily. "I've lost everything," she said finally. "The company, my home, even Alex left me." Alex, her fiancé, the one she'd flaunted on magazine covers. "I just need a chance. You're the only one who knows how hard this business is." Her voice cracked halfway through, and for a second, I saw not the rival who betrayed me, but the young girl who once dreamed with me in that tiny apartment years ago. I didn't interrupt her, I let her speak. She confessed everything: how greed had blinded her, how she chased fame until it consumed her, how the pressure to stay relevant turned her into someone she didn't recognize. She said she'd watched Eternaglow grow and that it humbled her. "You did what I couldn't," she said quietly. "You built something real. And I admire that, Claudia. I really do." There was no arrogance in her tone anymore. No manipulation. Just exhaustion and regret. For a brief, fleeting moment, my heart softened. I remembered all the years we spent together before success poisoned us. We'd shared birthdays, tears, even secrets no one else knew. And now she was here, sitting across from me, asking for mercy. But forgiveness doesn't mean reinstatement. I'd learned that the hard way. I had rebuilt my life without her, brick by brick, scar by scar. Letting her back in would mean reopening wounds that had finally started to heal. "Dina," I said gently, "I'm not angry anymore. Truly, I'm not, but the truth is, you taught me how to survive without you. And I can't unlearn that. Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't argue. Maybe she knew I was right. Maybe she was too tired to fight. She stood slowly, straightened her coat, and tried to smile through the sadness. I understand, she whispered. I guess I just wanted you to know I was sorry. I walked her to the door myself. My team pretended not to watch, but I could feel their curiosity buzzing in the air. Dina stopped at the lobby's glass doors and turned to me one last time. You did it, Claudia, she said softly. You became everything we dreamed of. When she left, the silence that followed felt heavier than any argument could have. I went back to my office, sat at my desk, and stared at the framed quote on my wall, "Build what they tried to bury." I thought about how strange life was, how the same person who once destroyed me had now come to me, seeking salvation. And though I didn't feel triumphant, I did feel something better. Closure. But just when I thought that it was the end of our story, fate reminded me it never runs out of surprises. A week later, as I was preparing for a new product launch, Jenna burst into my office holding her phone, her face pale. You need to see this, she said. She turned the screen toward me, and there it was, a viral post, spreading fast across social media. It was Dina again. But this time, it wasn't a scandal or a plea. It was something else entirely, something that would drag both of our names back into the spotlight. I didn't know it yet, but the final chapter of our story was just beginning. In the end, I learned revenge doesn't always look like punishment, it can look like peace. Weeks after that strange encounter in my office, just when I thought Dina had vanished from my story for good, her name appeared online again. But this time, it wasn't another scandal. It was a video. She had uploaded it herself, a shaky, unfiltered recording from what looked like a small apartment. No makeup, no designer clothes. Just Dina sitting in front of a plain white wall, looking more human than I had ever seen her. When I clicked play, her voice trembled. I owe someone an apology, she began. Not just to Claudia, but to everyone I lied to. My chest tightened as she continued. For the first time, she admitted everything, how she had stolen my ideas, manipulated the story, and let her ego destroy both of us. She spoke about how success had become her addiction, how fame blinded her until she couldn't see the truth anymore. There were tears in her eyes, but they weren't the kind that come from performance. They were real. The video went viral overnight. But unlike her past controversies, the reaction this time was different. People weren't mocking her, they were moved by her vulnerability. And even more unexpectedly, many praised me for the way I had handled it, all the silence. The dignity. The refusal to drag her name through the mud. It was surreal watching the world rewrite our story again. But this time, it was closer to the truth. I didn't rush to respond. I waited a few days before sending her a short message. Thank you for the apology. I accept it. That was all. No anger, no forgiveness speech, no nostalgia. Just closure. She replied with a simple, I wish you peace, Claudia. And for the first time, I believed she meant it. After that, I didn't think much about Dina anymore. I had spent too many years letting her name occupy space in my life. It was time to fill that space with something better. I threw myself into expanding Eternaglow and mentoring other women, especially those over 50 who had been betrayed, underestimated, or told their dreams had an expiration date. Their stories mirrored mine in different shades: business partners who'd stolen credit, companies that had pushed them aside for being too old, or families who never believed in them. Listening to them reminded me how universal my pain had been and how powerful recovery could become when shared. Eternaglow grew beyond anything I ever imagined. What started as one serum born from heartbreak became a global name rooted in authenticity. Women across generations embraced it, not just for the products but for what it stood for: second chances. We launched campaigns featuring women in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, all speaking proudly about the beauty of aging. Every story was a reflection of the message that had carried me out of despair: that renewal is always possible. With success came an opportunity to do more. I established a foundation called the Second Skin Initiative, dedicated to helping women entrepreneurs over 50 start their own businesses. We offered grants, mentorship, and training, focusing on women who had been pushed out of the workforce or silenced by circumstance. Every time I met a woman whose eyes lit up with newfound purpose, I felt a piece of my past heal a little more. One day, during a conference, someone asked me if my empire was built out of revenge. I smiled before answering. No, I said. It was built out of self-worth. That truth had taken me years to understand. My empire wasn't born from anger, it was born from survival, resilience, and the decision to believe in myself when no one else did. Sometimes, late at night, I still see Dina's name online. She works quietly now, doing small consulting projects, giving talks about ethical branding and personal accountability. There's a humility in her face I'd never seen before. I don't feel anger when I see her. If anything, I feel gratitude. She was the storm that tested me. And without her betrayal, I might never have discovered the strength that built Eterna Glow. People often say revenge is best served cold. But for me, it didn't come in the form of victory or humiliation. It came as peace. It came as the quiet mornings when I walked into my office, surrounded by women who believed in me, working in a building that once symbolized my downfall. It came as laughter echoing through halls that used to hold my pain. I don't hate her anymore. She lost fame, but I gained freedom, and that, I've learned, is the sweetest revenge of all. In the end, I didn't win by destroying her, I won by finding myself again. She lost everything chasing attention, while I found peace building purpose. Life has a way of giving back what's taken from you, just not in the way you expect. My story isn't about revenge, it's about rising stronger, wiser, and free. Because sometimes the sweetest victory is living well after they counted you out. Sometimes, the people who break us end up being the reason we rebuild stronger. If you believe every betrayal hides a new beginning, you already know how this story feels. And maybe you've had your own Dina once, someone who taught you strength the hard way. Tell me, if the person who once betrayed you came back asking for help, what would you do?